Still better than Bombay. Still better than roads are better than Bombay.
Can I get your card? Okay, no.
Why you people have made so strict this time?
Sir, this is good for everyone. Sir. Because my sponsors ask me for quality. I need to filter it. What? Hey, hello. See, because of my guests, I had to send all of them there, and they have not gone in because 7 times we will take.
It's expensive food, Chinese product, all made in Germany. We put it in Hyderabad, actually. Right? This one option. The other option is you have
So she was nervous. The speaker has to arrive. We're a full house outside. We're a mad house. And we have a fight.
Good evening, Bangalore. Good evening, Bangalore. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us at the first ever ZAK World of Windows conference here at Bangalore. It gives us great pleasure to have you all here today evening. I am Arvind Kumar, Vice President of ZAK Trade Fairs and Exhibitions, and it's an absolute honor to welcome and host you for today's program. You're going to have some entertaining presentations, critical discussions about Windows, about envelopes, and sum it up with a fantastic group discussion session at the end of today's program. One of ZAK's property, World of Facades, started from Bangalore, and we are emotionally attached to the city because this city gives us the great courage to go forward as we bring education to other parts of India. With that, may I please invite Ms. Isha Sharma, Project Head of ZAK Trade Fairs and Exhibition, to start today's program. Please help me welcome with a big round of applause, Ms. Isha Sharma.
Thank you very much, Arvind. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the ZAK World of Windows. This is going to be the first ever a series of conferences which is going to focus totally on fenestration. We're going to discuss the critical aspects around performance and applications of Windows. To kickstart the event, I would like to run you through the journey of a typical Indian window through the times. talks about the evolution of an Indian window. In ancient times, we used to have small peepholes in the huge fort walls. It was totally a functional opening just to allow light and ventilation. Then came the era of jharokas with balconies. It was again a functional aspect. It was to allow to the citizens and the women to peep through and witness the processions of the kingdom. Then came the very interesting concept of the jalis with the onset of medieval culture, with the rules of Mughals and the Rajputs. It is still considered to be the marvels of Indian architecture, the jalis with balconies on the windows. Now, taking a time leap with the modern invasions, we lost a lot of resources, so that though the technology came in, we could not actually invest in the technology and get them. So we had windows like these until very recently in the very modern India. Moving on, it improved. People started having proper shutters, the grills, makeshift jalis, the very nice French windows. These are the current windows in a city called Udaipur. They're the Pondicherry. They clearly reflect the French culture. This is a current window in the Victoria Terminus in Bombay. This is again a modern urban window. The awnings, the turn windows. So we've taken the time leap and arrived at the modern window scenario in India. We have the nice looking UPVC windows, the aluminium windows, French windows with or without Georgian bars, arch-shaped windows, wood finished windows or wooden windows. Then we started to understand the effect of glass. So we have tinted, reflective. The grills, which are very integral part of our windows. Curved windows. These are again taken from a very modern architecture, but having an ancient feel of jharokas. The sliding doors, balcony doors, huge paneled lift and slide doors. The colored windows in Kolkata. The bulletproof windows of the Prime Minister's house. These are some of the buildings having these modern windows, the residences. These are all real Indian houses. The celebrity houses. The architect's perception of windows. The contrast between modern and ancient. Inspired by the design of a crystal. Some very high performance windows. Preserving the ancient heritage, Mysore Palace. Now the modern Indian window is sliding folding or a tilt and turn door, tilt and turn window, tilt and slide window, the question is, have we really achieved this level of technology, the kind of windows that we have just lastly witnessed? No. They are the top 3, maybe 5% of the topmost of the lot. We still see very commonly the scenarios like this. This is a government school in Noida. This is a running school, it's not under construction. This is a house where people actually live. We have windows like this. This is a big house in Lajpat Nagar. It still is there. The windows are exactly the same. So the point is, have we really evolved? We're talking about great evolution in window history and the technology that has come in. So have we really arrived that we do not need to have the discussions like this? Actually, no. Still 90% or 80% of the lots are the very, very typical windows. I still live in a house, a good property in Delhi, which still has the windows in which the glass is pasted with putties. There's no proper application of glazing beads on there. So I always, if I have to push it open, then I always fear the glass shouldn't fall down. So we still live in houses like this. So that is why we have gathered around here to witness the best, to welcome the new technology, to discuss what is lacking when we have the technology, why we cannot implement them. With this note, I would like to welcome our first speaker of the day, the winner of various accolades and awards, architect Ravindra Kumar. Please welcome Mr. Kumar with huge round of applause. He is the design director of Venkatramanan Associates. He is also the principal of Prague Group. Please, sir. I'll just start your presentation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear good introductions for everybody else.
No problem. Okay. This is desktop. This is final images. Which one?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks, ZAK, and thanks, Bangalore. Thanks for all the opportunity this country has given us to do what we can do. We are at a fabulous moment of time. I think the transformation brings in also the understanding of new age, new technology, new innovation and investigation to do what we want to do. Many years back, I was quite sort of honored to have an opportunity to work with Paramasti Lucho, who actually introduced me to the whole technology way back in 96 or 97. And I spent quite a huge period of time in Australia trying to understand how do you ever manage to stick glass? That was probably the first question that all of us sort of ordained upon. And the building on Magarat Road was probably the first of its example after Isar Towers that happened in Bombay, where somebody was brave enough to say that you can go ahead and stick glass on a building. That was the first point of surprise that all of us arrived at. And technology has changed drastically post that. So I will run through a few slides. I won't be elaborate on some of the slides, but the expression of window has grown beyond the concept of just a fenestration cover. It also becomes an articulation mode. I'm sure there are enough technical buffs here who will go and talk about everything else, from the screws, nuts, and bolts, and the quality of it, the cost of it. So I would love to sort of dwell upon a pitch on the aesthetics or the evaluation of the expression of what a window can be. A project that was done in Bhubaneswar as to how a window system in perfection can also become a great value to understand the visuals of an exterior, or the potential of it to become an arrival point to a space. The fenestration still performs the perfect technology, what we can imagine to happen today, where the transitions becomes completely translucent in its arrival space. I would love to run a short video, which is, sorry. The magnificence of fenestration James Turrell talks about this idea, which is fabulous to understand what can be done with an opening.
For me, it was important that people come to value light. To value light as we value gold, silver, paintings, objects. It's not something that you form with the hands like wax or clay. You don't carve it away like with wood or stone. You don't assemble it like welding it. And it's kind of learning your craft. It took a while for me to learn to work with light so that you really felt its physical presence and came to value it. I started making these kinds of spaces first in my studio, but the idea began to evolve so that I actually was making these spaces outside that you actually entered to then look out from, I suppose to gain outlook or even insight on how we perceive sky. This is a space where I want to bring the space of the sky down to the top of the space you're in, so that you really feel to be at the bottom of the ocean of air. And you really then experience this quality that can happen at the change of day to night and night to day. But doing this right at the cusp of change was very important.
So the fact there was that the qualification of the detail there became immensely accurate. The junction between an RCC slab to the threshold that Farrell tried to achieve in terms of the alignment of the completeness of that 1 inch of detail became magnanimous in its expression to the architectural sense. He went on to do quite a few works, installations as window art in Louvre. He did quite a few installations also at the Guggenheim. So what we understand out of this conversation, that window or the fenestration surpasses the understanding of a security cover or an aesthetic of its evaluation. We can look at history, and in the previous few images, we do understand how there were other formats of iterations that happened to an expression to the outside. And boom, where are we now today? We are looking at huge qualified bridges which span tremendous extents, and the whole thing can become a superbly translucent vein, which can almost culminate the necessity of sort of locating a person from one destination to the other destination, but almost be in air as space. Or as an example of what we did for one of the projects on the edge of a river, where the visual link between the workspace environment inside to the river became so seamless through this vanishing edge pool that every person sitting in these conference rooms or meeting rooms felt like he was floating on a boat on the water. It's just not that you create vanishing pools in swimming areas or sort of resort sort of destinations. The same without having to visibly see the window space. This was another exploration that we did in Bombay, where the space was completely lit, but every space or every actuation of light became an edge line of that particular space to ordinate the expressions of the textures and the colors of that restaurant. Most of the time, we tend to see the phenomena of having huge atrium covers. A sustainable evaluation will predict or dictate that you do not need more than 10 or 12% of light for an Indian climate conditions. But we tend to look at these atriums as sort of Western element features, and we want to flood them with light and unnecessarily consume a lot of energy. So a huge amount of evaluation or analysis will lead to spaces such as this, which was done in Pune, where you do not need a huge volume of atrium to daylight the whole workspace environment, where the active office space is 100% daylit throughout the day, that they don't have to use any artificial light. Or a conversation between a historical precinct to something that is completely modern as a point of expression, and how you can achieve the same quality of diagram but completely different in the context of its detail and the quality of the junction of each glass to aluminum expression. And how can you do that with these geometries is the point of exploration again here. And that reciprocation of language, what we did for another project in Bangalore, is fabulous because you see these two fenestrations talking to each other all the time in the same geometry of rhythm and repetition. Or the nostalgia of what was there is recreated by the elements of the new extrusions that we try to involve or evoke the position of history. We do have abilities to create fancy diagrams, clad the whole building today in complete clear glass, and they are just held stuck on or clipped on with little bolts which seemingly do not even exist on the surface or the extent of the surface that you see as glass. Whereas in contrast to that, the animation that historically people tried to achieve is fabulous. This is the Pantheon, where you find that each of the murals that you tend to see in each of those naves tell a specific story of a certain time. And the light and the window is so perfectly designed that there is a beam of light which will traverse through each of those naves at specific points of time. And there is a whole story of revelation. The section, the geometry, and the scale of which was achieved impeccably perfect at that point of time. As a parallel, how we love to flood the northern light. The space with the notion of a tradition in a postmodern era. We want to recreate positions of history in our internal workspace environment, but at the same time want to relate to an expression which is modern, which is light absorbing. Or extend the window, the second skin of a window, as a huge shading coefficient to a terrace area, to convert that into a huge landscape space on the southwest edge line of a terrace, and how you can achieve the same qualification, and use the external expression as a very 21st century sort of construction expression-oriented element for the whole building outline, and it can become another third layer to the whole building. It can be also done in a very simplistic way, where triple glazing or double glazing can be achieved with voids. Sometimes we run into a lot of details. It's not very clear here, but you can go into the god or the core god of detail when you go into these junctions of aluminum. This is another video which I won't run completely, but this is La Tourette, where Corbusier brought in the element of music, the element of repetition of signals and the modulation of the golden principle into his window system. Mostly this building now today is under renovation, and then it does not understand the quality at which the design orientation was done for the same. However, the quality of glazing systems have helped us to achieve other elements to a building design. This is something that we did for a destination which is in a very remote part of Andhra Pradesh, where no man ever sort of explored other than the paddy field and the farmers. And you had to protocol an arrival, and we used the elements of a window system to be able to create the same. But in terms of its opposite, when it became the building activated space, you did not require those kind of windows that you saw the same system design in a point of element of an entrance, and we had to curtail that. Large software campuses where sprawling greens can be spread on hard rock surfaces will go through intense analysis of such kind, where every fenestration is evaluated. These are graphs of a project which we are just a couple of weeks away from sign-offs. And the amount of analysis that goes into looking at each facade, each quantum of opening, the specification of what the glass will be, what should be the glass coding, what should be the junction detail of the glass to the aluminum to the wall space, the amount of openings that is required, what is the quality of light shelving that you have to do to reflect back maximum amount of light into space, how do you bar off the inclination of light penetrating more than its adequate necessity, and how the facade can also become an architectural sort of summary of elements is something that we explored in all this exercise. So the window does not arrive just necessarily because it comes from an aesthetic understanding of eventual, but it is a mathematical oriented arrival to what it can be. And that is what will be the heat incidence and the quality of heat incidence. And each glass panel is almost specifically designed to understand the penetration. Projects can afford that today, and there is technology that is available to evaluate that. And these are simulations of heat and light penetration that one can experience in a workspace environment and qualify the nature of its making. At the same time, you can look at traditional methods. What Isha also showed about these jali patterns. You can convert the jali into a complete ceiling, where we have almost encased a project of 6,000 square feet of roof cover using this jali and taken large surfaces of skylight. So the incidence of light through such a space almost is magnanimous to sort of dissuade the person to understand whether it's an exterior space or an interior space. And the reflections of its existence against the glass is fabulous. This is a theater, so therefore you create mirage. You create a sense of arrival, departure, and disappearance and appearance. Or when you shift back, there was a question whether in a domestic scale, when you build a small villa, will these details extend? Today, the quality of timber windows and the extrusions that you get to club with a timber window is fantastic. That technology was not seen. We just hope more and more fabricators will be able to manufacture them in this country, then end up paying 60, 70% for transportation and duties to the government. And that technology will completely change the notion of what can it be as traditional. So when you see this contrast, the junction detail of the window system is the same. But what it can do to a house, it can do to a large dining space building or a very large campus on a 35-acre space. The quality of a brick can transform itself using window technology to clad itself on an exterior without dilapidating as terracotta, or as the incidental light, what I talked about, for an inside space where you get a museum experience in a restaurant where you do not see the source of light, but you see only the reflected source of light. We can create a contrast of hardcore stone skin wall paneling where a building which is almost 6 floors tall is all completely cladded with solid granite, like what you see in Vidhan Saudha, in a very contemporary, modern way where the glass has a contrast element to its parallel. And this can be quite fabulous to see this language of communication. So the root of tradition is not a point to discard, but to recreate and re-reveal in its expression of what it can be to an inside, and what the incidence of light can be on an all-white staircase. This is incidentally my house. However, when you start looking at larger structures and larger panels, how do you delineate and make the client walk through the journey of sustainability? Walk through the understanding that sustainability means money for him. Sustainability means not larger expenditures as capital investment, but conceived protracted expenses of what a building should have as a potential. A large hotel space where we created the wall of the Malnad as an imagery and used that as a huge shading device as a graphic element. And the insides become pretty well shaded and is completely neutral and minimal to understand the incidence of light as shade and shadow. The same as the space in the night. When we look at junction details, most architects tend to understand, or the developers tend to understand, that the qualification of that detail tends to disappear into the fabricator's realm of making. But that does not stop there. It has to understand how an architect can re-reveal that communication link between the point of detail to what the execution can be. And how volumes like this for another large life science building can be magnanimous, and the whole city completely looks like a relic compared to the interiors. This is Bombay. And how shading coefficients on a large campus. This is incidentally another 100-acre campus where we are right now working on the designs for a 7 million square feet space, and how you create something called as a heat volume effect within the precinct of a campus where you have 60 to 70 buildings, and what is the reflective quality of a building? What does a window do to the outside of its extents? A study was done, for example, in Alsur, where they tried to rework on the heat capture of its exteriors and what it can do to an exterior. So you create master plans, evaluate master plans to understand how these three options can really create a better temperature space in an outdoor environment outside the building line, or within the floor plate, what is the incidence of light penetration, what is the quality of daylighting that you can capture in a space, what should be the idea of fenestration. So the mathematics literally dictates the idea of the quantum of opening, rather than making just a completely all-glass Western idiom of understanding of what an exterior wall can be. And these are careful annotations. So today, architecture or making a facade is no more just the aesthetic evaluation of the idea. It has to have its cyclorama or a backdrop to understand that aesthetic evaluation, but every time it becomes mathematical. It becomes evaluation scientific. Even if it's a small house, if it's the space of the living and the dining space, how do you extend the quality of reflectance to bring in light to a better capture? Or when you create the notion of a traditional house, each window, the sizing of a window, the function of a window, the quantum of mosquito netting that you have to do to that window, and what does that window do to the outside space of its precinct becomes significantly important. We do not need to see completely all the time to the outdoors. We can recreate a completely intrinsic indoor space which can be completely enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ravindra Kumar. That was a really thrilling presentation, and we sure all of us learned a thing or two from this. And of course, the technical people must have learned a lot more. To continue, let's revisit the design of a profile, how the glass holds, as Mr. Kumar started his presentation with. Let's welcome Mr. Farid Khan, the CEO, Profine India. Very dynamic, very calm, very efficient. He's from the army background. He's taken Profine to heights in India.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all the Bangaloreans, as well as the prominent South Indian guests who are present over here. I thank, first of all, ZAK for giving Komaling this opportunity to present this wonderful evening in the city of Bangalore. I won't be too technical like my predecessor was. I would be more talking in terms of the commercial aspects and more in terms of the general aspects of UPVC. And for me, the topic, what has been allotted is opportunities and challenges for the UPVC profiles. Yeah, this is how we see any place wherever we enter. We see that, okay, there are nothing, and then we try to build the inroads into that particular market. Profine as a company has a long history, and Komaling as a brand has a long history. Just to give you a brief background of how we got into this business, we are the pioneers of manufacturing UPVC profiles. We were the first company in the world to introduce UPVC profiles. We did it in the year 1954. Basically, Profine is operating in the world through three brands. One is Trokal, one is Komaling, and one is KBE. Komaling is the most widely spread brand all over the globe. So we have a production capacity of 450,000 metric tons in a year with an annual turnover of around 1 billion euro. And we have presence almost in all the markets in the world. In India, we have been present for almost 8 years, and we always, when we say we, as a German company, we always thought that India is one of the most exciting markets wherein we need to have a presence as soon as possible. And that is how you can see in the picture that we try to build the roads even in the harshest place. And this is how we decided to venture into this market. This is how the scenario of windows in India has been till now. Windows has always been like an object, and it has always been behind the curtains. There has been no specific attention to this object. People have just taken it as for granted that, okay, it's for an opening, it's for protecting yourself from rain, from wind. Now with the growing urbanization happening, there's a lot of noticeable factors like noise, thermal efficiency, air pollution, wherein UPVC has come into the forefront, and UPVC is playing a very major role in convincing the end customers that, okay, this is the product for the present and for the future. You have a lot of difficulties in getting rid of unwanted elements which were there in the conventional window systems. Architects have done their best to keep these elements out, but still these elements have found ways to get into the house, mainly through gaps, through cracks in conventional windows, which is hardly possible in any UPVC window. And yeah, so UPVC has come up with the solution for this market and for the global market. UPVC in India is a new concept, but elsewhere in the world, because as we told you that we are present globally, and we have seen this UPVC develop everywhere in the world. It was all aluminum and wood. Like for example, if I take Russia or for Turkey or for any region like China, it was predominantly a wooden and aluminum market. Almost 10, 15 years back, you can say it was 15% only UPVC. Now the trend has reversed. It is approximately 85 to 90% UPVC everywhere in the world. And the same trend, we see that it will be happening in India very soon. Energy is getting expensive, noise is becoming a nuisance, dust is present everywhere, so everybody is looking for a combo pack. And this is what UPVC is providing in this market. And we, as one of the pioneers, we want to be the forefront runners in this market also. This is the strength of the Indian market, and this is the biggest opportunity wherein we see that we can capitalize. And okay, the conventional windows will also be present, but at the same time, we want to increase. India, again, has a population which is growing at a rate of 17 million per year. 35% of the population is younger than 15 years, 70% of the population is younger than 35 years, which I personally think is one of the biggest plus factors for this market. This you cannot see anywhere in Europe or in any developed countries. The population is shrinking over there. So right now we have a huge captive consumption wherein we think that, okay, with UPVC, yes, it can creep into this sector. And okay, the working age population is bound to rise by 250 million in 20 years compared with 10 million in China. What are the drivers of the market? The drivers: substitution of other window materials, increasing demand for reconstruction, redevelopment, emerging trend of urbanization. People are moving from rural areas to urban areas for their livelihood. The growing middle class is increasing. People are demanding more living space. There's a very young population, increasing living space per capita. So all these factors are the key drivers wherein we think that, okay, UPVC as a material is bound to grow leaps and bounds. Just to give a brief scenario of how the Indian window market is in terms of material, aluminum is right now the forefront runner in this with 66%, and wood is around 20%, steel windows are with 11%, and UPVC is around 3%, and 4% are in new buildings. The total market size of PVC in India is very, very small. It's only around 20,000 tons. Whereas if you talk about the market, UPVC market size in China, which is again having a similar population what we are having, it's a 3 million ton market. So there's a huge potential in this market wherein we are trying to capitalize upon and trying to educate the market that, okay, this product is far, far, far better than the other conventional materials. In this particular slide, I'm just trying to show that, okay, what are the advantages of UPVC over the other traditional material? Okay, it's an eco-friendly product built with eco-stabilizers. Just for your information, like in the formulation, when you're making the PVC profiles, there are stabilizers. So most of the companies, they're using lead stabilizers. But as a company, it's a policy. We are using all calcium zinc stabilizer. So there is no heavy metal or lead involved into it. So it's a completely green product. It's a 100% recyclable product. In Europe, the human life has a lot of value, but in India, okay, human life doesn't have too much of value. So while recycling also, there are a lot of people who are involved into this process. So we care for the environment, we care for the people. So we are using no heavy metals. Yeah, UPVC as a product has an excellent weather resistance. It requires minimal maintenance, very easy to install. It's a highly durable product, no rusting or corrosion. It's a sound and dust resistant product. It's a very highly security guarded material. It has the highest insulation properties. Energy cost, you can cut up to 30% with the right profiles systems, with the right chambers. It's a termite proof. So again, people who are having the wooden doors and windows, they're facing a lot of problems with termite. So again, UPVC gives the right solution regarding this. It's an economical and affordable product. Now, what are the key drivers? What are the key drivers for this market? And one of the key drivers is the real estate market. One of the key reasons for driving the real estate market is the increase in urbanization. As you see that only 300 million people live in cities, which implies an urbanization rate of 28% versus China, which is 40%. This means that 800 million people still conduct rural lives. And as new jobs are opening, people are migrating from rural areas to bigger cities. So again, people are understanding that, okay, for a better living, we need a better product. Emergence of the middle class, again, a very important factor for promoting the real estate market. The purchasing power is increasing. People, they want to have good lives, new jobs, and a better housing and a high quality retail. So middle class is one of the driving factors of this Indian society. Then redevelopment opportunity, like, okay, we have given an example of Mumbai, wherein you have the slums also, and you have high-rise buildings also. So there are a lot of redevelopment opportunity which is there. And for that reason, we see that, okay, as a UPVC door and a window, there are a lot of opportunities in this market based on the relevant factors. Okay, we talk about the standardization for UPVC doors and windows. Again, in the past, doors and windows have been a very disorganized sector. And as one of the players of UPVC profile manufacturers, we are committed along with our other partners like ZAK, Aluplast, Fenesta, there are a lot of other companies, wherein we are trying to standardize the product. And for this, there's a body which is known as UWUDMA, which is closely coordinating with BIS so that we can lay down the standards to meet the Indian conditions. IGBC, Indian Green Building Council, again, a major promoter for green building concepts, is associated with LEED and GREHA, which is working on energy saving initiatives. And one more important factor is that we need to define the profile with the formulation and the environmental safety. We don't want to go in a haywire situation wherein one is moving in other direction, one is moving in other direction. We want to take this UPVC in a very professional and in a very organized way. And that is what all of us together, we are working for this. This particular slide, it shows a little bit of comparison with China. Okay, there are many other factors which are involved into the Chinese scenario. But okay, I'm just trying to portray over here what has been the development of PVC window units in China. And if we follow the same trend or a little bit on a lower side, Like in China also in 1995, it was a very, very small market. And from 1998 to 2008, the growth has been 2,000% in PVC. It was around 100,000 tons in 1998, and today it is around 3 million tons of PVC in China. Today, as I showed you in my previous slide, that the Indian market is around only 20,000 tons. And even if we consider a 50% growth, so we land up somewhere around more than 1.5 million tons. So again, these are assumptions, but we are quite optimistic that we will be able to promote this market in a very, very positive and in a very organized manner. And yeah, and for all this, it's not only Komaling who will be a part of this, it has to be the complete UPVC fraternity who has to join hands to promote this product. And this is the goal, wherein we need that, okay, UPVC has to be at the peak, and Komaling has to be one of the major players in this. Before UPVC, whenever anybody used to speak UPVC, it was always Fenesta. And Fenesta was like a generic thing. People, they didn't know UPVC, they said Fenesta window chahiye. Now the thing is that a lot of players have come into this market. A lot of awareness have come into this market. Komaling as a brand has been one of the global leaders. Okay, we have not been too much popular in India for many reasons. That, okay, we were more concentrating on the other markets. But now our management has decided, and we have already come up with a manufacturing facility in Vadodara. And for the simple reason that we believe that India is the market, and we have been a success story everywhere in the world. So we also believe that we will be a success story in this market. And the simple reason was that till now we were all importing profiles from our China plant, from our Germany plant, and that was only a time-being solution. So personally, I was fighting for this plant for almost 3-4 years. We have a very strong channel partner base. We manufacture profiles, but at the same time, we have business partners located all over India who are fabricating wonderful doors and windows from our profiles. And for the simple reason that they invested a lot of money on our name. They had bought a huge set of machineries, a huge set of place. And we always felt that, okay, the time has come wherein we need to repay back to this market and to our customers. And that was the reason why we came up with this facility. And we are quite hopeful that we would be able to take this UPVC venture in this Indian market in a very professional and in a very organized way. We are totally committed to the market. Till now, we have invested around 50 crores. We have set up 3 lines. We are planning to set up around 10 lines right now with a capacity of 3,000 to 4,000 metric tons. And for this reason, I need the support of all the construction industry fraternity, because we are there for all of you. And the only thing is that, okay, we had the belief that this is the market, and we need all your support. And as far as UPVC as a product is concerned, it's a wonderful product. Again, there are a lot of things involved. We are the leaders. We don't compromise on quality. We are the best, and we want to serve to the best of the market. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Huge round of applause for Mr. Fareed Khan, please, ladies and gentlemen. So UPVC is the way forward. It is. Now that we have learned how to hold the glass together, we need to know how to hold the window together to the building. On this note, let me invite a very dynamic speaker, very vivacious. He has the experience of around 20 years in the Indian window industry. He has done a lot through being in the instrumental in forming the CCPS guidelines. Mr. Amit Malhotra. I can't see him here. Okay. Here, he's in the first row. Please, huge round of applause with Mr. Amit Malhotra, please. He's not going to speak unless it is audible enough.
I'm right here. Can I get a round of applause, please? I'll try to entertain you guys. Thank you. Okay, my presentation is quite boring, so I'll try to make it interesting. And first of all, message of Fareed's only buy Comoling windows. A clap for Fareed. But it's a joke. Okay, hi Bangalore. And I'm going to do a small test with you guys. It's called a Bangalore Punjabi test. So instead of saying good evening and so on, I would like you to learn one word of Punjabi and say Sat Sri Akal. So on 3, are you ready, guys? 1, 2, 3. Sat Sri Akal. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Come on, get some energy. We'll get food and drinks later. So 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So all my friends who are from Delhi, hi as well. Like I said, my presentation is quite boring, so I'll try to make it interesting. I learned a lot of things in Bangalore. I have lots of my customers. As long as architect Ravindra Kumar keeps making nicer buildings and Fareed and the entire community makes windows, we'll keep selling our products. So thank you all for making us to be, surviving well here. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies. What was that mic thing? Okay, I have to do some gibberish about our company as well because it's a part of the job as sponsors. You have to kind of talk about yourself and how big you are and all that jazz. So I have just 2 slides on that. We formed a joint venture with Sudal, which is the world's largest producer of sealants and foams. So as this number says, lots of millions of cartridges of cans and sealants, probably the largest. And this is our production plant in India. Funny thing is, I used to keep saying we invested $10 million, $10 million. Now, bloody, the dollar's gone so bloody down. You can't say 10 million anymore. So I follow Fareed and say 50 crores, count more respectable as a number. Would you agree? Dollars hitting everybody? Okay. So we started our production in 2012, last year. It's not that you are going to say it, but it's a very nice looking plant. So I thank you. A round of applause, please. So this plant was built. Don't be shy, guys. I mean, if others are not clapping, you don't have to wait for them. It's all right. So this is a state-of-the-art plant. And I'm only proud to say only one thing. We have about 11 guys in this plant who operate and produce about 1 million cartridges a month. And it's fully state-of-the-art and produces. That's like it. Thank you, guys. So we built this plant, and it works quite well. It works 1 shift at the moment. So all the fraternity must sell more windows. Please work very hard, window people. Sell more windows so that we can sell. Balaji, you have to sell a lot of windows. So it works well, and like I said, it's a state-of-the-art plant. And its optimum capacity is to go to 3 million in 2 shifts, which is our target. For that, again, you'll have to sell a lot more. So thank you all. Okay, my colleagues earlier talked about their profiles and so on and so forth. But I'm sorry to tell all my colleagues that you are incomplete without us. Whether you like it or not, Manish, you are incomplete without us because you need to have protection against air, dust, UV, water, sound, acoustic, thermal, and all these fancy words because they all make sense. And it has to be sure that your window is sealed properly. If you do recall Isha's slideshow, talked about a lot of windows and she was complaining about putty. Where are you, Isha? I'll get your silicone done. I didn't know that you have putty in your glass. And Deepak will supply the glass and Fareed will do the window. So.
Free. I need him free.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll charge you, the rest can give it free. So that this is pretty typical in India. I used to say when I started sealants about 15 years ago, that I would like to see it everywhere in all applications. We see a lot of it now, which is very positive. But if this slide is a little bit visible, lots of wrong products are being used for all these applications. So sealants come out, tear out, leave gaps. And of course, the finishing in our country is absolutely fabulous in the other way, because I wouldn't like to pass any blame, but it's the way our industry works that everybody doesn't do floor by floor, and the CCI says, I'll screw you if you don't finish your project to brigade, and then they have to finish it really quickly, and lots of things happen together. So synchronization somewhere, and finishing is where the aspect usually gets killed. So we are amongst those people who try our best to explain to customers, but okay, that's the boring bit. Common sites, sealant coming out. Thank you. So, sorry guys. Whenever you feel bored, just clap. It's a nice thing. You've heard of this laughter therapy. Come on guys, one more time. Awesome. I'm forcing you. You probably kill me outside, but that's all right. I'm pretty used to it. So, okay, as business demands, we have a range of products which we sell for these applications. All our great customers are sitting here. I thank you all for being here and for supporting us. Because if you are here, we are here. And that stands for everybody who sells glass and profiles and so on and so forth. As a little marketing trick, all these gentlemen are customers, all the fabricators. And I think it's unfair to talk about UPVC because it's not the only product for Windows. But to give OCAD to Windows, UPVC was instrumental. And well, Fareed said about Fenesta, it's still generic. Window is known as Fenesta. But the reality is that those guys came along at a time when a window was an aluminum $200 a square feet, and that's all anybody knew about a window. So all our industry in 2000 went to facades and built nice buildings and so on. But the reality is the thing which opens maximum and closes in a house is your window. At least we don't open it actually because the window is sometimes not worth opening. And of course we have flies and mosquitoes. But the reality is that thanks to Fenesta, I don't know if anybody's here from Fenesta today. Anybody from Fenesta? Oh, awesome. Hi guys. We love you. Don't worry about Fareed. So, so the idea was these guys worked hard. They built plants. They went to all the developers and talked about Windows. Earlier, the developer and the builder said, okay, my budget is $200 a square feet, make me a window. So there was no spec. And now at least a window has become a respectable product. And the reason that we can do this world of Windows is because window by itself is a respectable product. And thankfully, when all these companies come along, they come and talk about Windows. Of course, that's my panel discussion part. Why am I wasting? Sorry, guys. So I guess most of you use sealants. And I'll be very unhappy if you don't use ours. So kindly be careful about that. So sealants was something which is very common now in this country. And one of our products, the PS, is a respectable product. It's a good product, and it's used for most of our UPVC and some parts of aluminum industry. While we seal these windows, the bigger problem than sealing is about these gaps in our windows. Our finishing, when you put the window together, when the rough ground is prepared, the sizes are taken, and when the UPVC or the window maker comes and the size is a little bit different. So you get 10 mm, 20 mm, 30 mm, 50 mm, all kinds of gaps. So what usually is done is the gap is filled or left hollow and superficially sealed with silicone. So when Mr. Deepak Malik and his wife are fighting, everybody can hear outside because the window is not sealed or there's a lot of noise going through. So what I'm actually trying to get to is the joints here have to be taken care of through and through. And in order to do that, okay, this is condensation and mold, and this is just an IR graphy of how this thing works. And these are common sites in everybody's homes. Isha, yours is very bad, so we'll get you fixed, don't worry about that.
For free.
So, introduce a product. Of course, this is traditionally used all over the world very effectively. It's a product called polyurethane foam. I'd request some of my team members to do a magic show here. If you want to get your clothes dirty, you can touch the foam. For the rest, can only see on my right, on my left. So on my left and on your right, this guy is just trying to open a can of foam and spraying it. It's not shaving foam, so I would not recommend shaving with it. Okay, Ravi? Hold on, thanks. So what this foam does is solidifies after an hour or two and expands. And it fills all these cavities and gaps. So it's an awesome product when it comes to sound insulation, filling. And it's not really a practice in this country. Only some of our customers have started to use PU foams. So as you put the window together, and there is these gaps which are there. Now, bear in mind that these gaps which are there are pretty normal. Manish, would you agree? These are normal. And we've discussed this many times. And it's not either one of us who can fix this because it's generic, it comes. So if the gap is wider than 10 mm, usually I've seen silicone. Sorry, are you asking me to get out, Isha? Okay, 2 minutes more. I know I can do better. Sorry, guys. Can you clap for me, please?
Clapping means you have to come out.
Okay. So a simple system, and of course all fabrication industries are aware of it. They anchor the window, cleaning. I have seen, this is still cleaning, but lots of windows are not, because we request people to wear safety goggles. We have a very, especially for India, we created this called Patli Dandi. This Patli Dandi is Hindi, but actually it's called a straw, like a 5 mm straw, because gaps here are really, really small sometimes. But you still have to make sure that the foam gets into these cavities. So this Patli Dandi then is fixed on the foam, and then you can spray it, inject it. So once this, one second. Once this is cured, it becomes hard. It's still soft, you can still press it, but it becomes hard, and then you shave it off with a knife. So the main purpose is to be able to inject the foam and be able to cut sound, reduce the sound, and of course fill the gaps. Water, condensation issues, leakages can be taken care of. And I would request the entire community of UPVC to start actually using. We've done a lot of training with a lot of you guys, but it's high time because now windows are becoming expensive. You guys have 100% margins. My products are not that expensive. You can just buy a few and at least please us, then you can get on with it. So it's simple, cut it, and then finally finish with silicone. Of course, we sell a lot of this product, the sealant, but a lot of it is wasted as well because they try to inject the silicone inside the window. Now, technically, if you put silicone deeper than the width, it will never cure. So it's let's say if a 10 mm width is there, you can put 5 mm, it will still cure. But most people, they just keep injecting the silicone, they want to fill the gap. So having said that, it's important to fill the gap with a filler product, not with silicone. So foam is very, very important. And of course, we're trying to approach specifiers to start putting this. Okay, finishing, job done. And lastly, a good and a bad foam is an example on the left and the right. A bad foam will have a lot of cavities. And a good foam, which is ours, of course, has no cavities because there's no solvent in these products. Of course, foams can also be used for sanitary, for pipes. And another application where we're doing is drywalls, where foam is being used to fix the drywalls. So instead of using that powder water system, just apply the foam and fix the drywall. We're doing some huge projects at the moment in Delhi area, some hotels with these drywalls. Where we started selling foams is window and door frame installation. So instead of using anchors and fasteners, I'm just talking about one last slide about the application, is you can now fix door frames, and I think many developers here are already using this product in their areas. So it's the same application methodology, but this is an adhesive foam, so it has a very high adhesive property. So you can inject it, and it holds the foam in place, and the door frame in place. But the best thing is it's cheaper, because labor cost is going up. So it's faster, cheaper, and it does the job much more efficiently. So finally, plaster over the foam, and you're done with it. And with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And one last time, you can clap. Sorry, Isha.
If you guys want, you can do that. Okay. So with that, we have a very, very special presenter now with us who has come a long way from Europe, passing all the hardships of travel gone wrong. Let's welcome Mr. Tiago from Alu Alpha. He is a mechanical engineer with over 20 years of experience. He's going to talk about the functionality of the windows and how the hardware helps in that.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for my bad English, but it's not that easy to make a presentation in a foreign language. I will try to do my best. Well,
huge round of applause for Mr. Tiago.
First of all, I would like to thank ZAK for the opportunity to make this presentation. This is a more technical explanation than commercial. I think that in this case, it's more important to...
We have Ms. Farid Khan, CEO, Profine India. He taught us how to fit glass into the profiles. And to moderate the discussion, we have two very interesting personalities amongst us, very energetic. Let me welcome Mr. Deepak Chugh. He's the Managing Director, LGF Sysmex Private Limited. An engineer with more than 20 years of experience. He's been instrumental in bringing about the machine revolution. Over to Mr. Deepak Chugh.
Thank you, Isha, and well, warm welcome to all of you in Bangalore. And well, World of Windows finally here. We've made a start. There's been some interesting questions that'll be coming around in the next about 45 minutes to an hour. We've had a good number of speakers who've spoken about a lot of things, so probably it's your time now to say whatever you want. Ask questions which are interesting. You might get answers which you never wanted to hear. You might get answers which you always wanted to hear. It's going to be quite interesting. We have a good panel on board, and well, as everybody says, 2 is always better than 1. So, well, I thought we'd probably get an interesting dynamic. Probably one of the most vivacious people on board, Amit. He's been hiding somewhere, so we get him back on. We need a bigger round of applause. He's always been demanding one.
Plan not to, gentlemen. I never knew you were an engineer.
You never knew that? Oh my God.
I thought you wear specs because it puts you make. Okay.
But I've got like, I was looking around the crowd, and the first 1, 2, 3, 4 rows have a lot of guys from the facade industry. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So the windows are coming on. So is it Windows is making more money now than facades, or is it well, or is
no,
it?
I can say they've been thrown out of the facade industry. So
right.
they were seeking out for window opportunities.
Or has Windows got its due, or is it like more interesting now, or are we on the right forum, or is the food interesting today? All right, thank you, sir.
And we have more questions for you later.
All right, we have plenty of questions. We've got a huge list. I've been handed over a list which is like running into pages and pages. We're going to try and see how much we can get through. I'm going to ask Amit. All right.
Sorry, guys.
So Amit's going to take over. He's going to probably start explaining what we're going to do today, why we've been called. We've been given a job, we've been given a salary as well, right? Still not credited, but we've been given one. So you can start. That was the same for me too.
Sir, this one can work. Hello. Okay, good evening, Bangalore again. Let's do that Sat Sri Akal thing again one more time. Please, I want to do it. Sir, with due respect, Sat Sri Akal! Awesome, thank you. Sorry, I put a disclaimer here. Anything said by me which may offend anybody is usually not intended to. But don't get me wrong. And the same applies for my colleague here, Deepak. Okay, so we've divided this session into 2 parts. One will talk about design, and the other one will talk about execution. Both are predominantly interesting subjects, so we'll try to make sure that they are not so boring, and then we can have more interaction. Facade people, chill. Okay, Deepak, the first question, over to you.
All right, I'm going to pick the first question, and I'll take it in the sequence to you, sir. Well, very simple, basic question to start this kicking off. What do you look into when you decide what's going to be the design of a window?
Does this work? Hello?
I hope so.
We paid your bills, haven't we? We should make it work, no?
I think I should probably start talking about a small poem Pablo wrote. He said, I want to do to you what the wind does to the cherry trees. Of course, his context was completely different. He was talking about a man singing this poem to a woman. But the window systems traditionally seem to be a seal from an exterior. And a very controlled parameter of how it lets, the temperature or weather inside the space that you habit. We need to understand the technology innovation where you can condition the window to qualify the comfort joy of sitting inside and letting the temperature breathe in, rather than create a seal and making the space active. So I think more and more the technology innovation or the investigation is running into a parameter where the window is as intelligent as a BMS system, where it can almost modulate what can happen to the inside for comfort and breathe the outside.
Thank you very much, sir. But what I'd like to emphasize on is the main parameters besides, well, the comfort of having a window that breathes. I mean, what other things do crop up first into your mind? What are the first thoughts when you design a building and you want to put in a window over there? What are the key factors that you look into?
See, largely, one is, of course, the primordial necessity of its expression to the exterior or the interior. And that is in the detail of the window. When you look at Eames sections of a piece of furniture or even the steel windows that you find, when you go to Colaba and look at, a campus like ICTS, for example, and operate those windows and the hardware are so goddamn intelligent. So therefore, the aesthetic of evaluation comes parallelly with the quality of detail that you see in the window. Plus, the capabilities of what randomly an imagination can do. For example, there are window systems which can span 4 or 5 meters, vertically 2 meters, horizontally slide in, slide out. How much this kind of technology can be made accessible to the common use becomes a point of exploration. So therefore, there are quite a few criteria which govern the necessity of making the idea for the window, but these form the primary requisites.
Do you think insulation, acoustics, things like that also form part right in the initial setup when you think about them? Security, for example, security of a building. I mean, is there a different criteria when you're selecting windows for, let's say, villas, for residential high-rise towers, or is there, mass dwellings? Is the parameter different, or is the parameter pretty much similar?
No. It's totally different. It's absolutely different because based on the scale of repetition, based on the scale of quality that you expect out of its performance, things will definitely vary from where you start doing for a villa to a large high-rise apartment. The wind pressures have to activate that qualification very, very well. So therefore, the science of a window is absolutely primordial. The whole idea about the sealant that he was showing, how to seal a leak, and water, I think, is one of the most intelligent natural elements on the planet. It knows how to penetrate. No water, what do you do? And I always tell people that there's nothing called waterproofing. There's only a method to retain the quantum of water that can enter in. So therefore, technology, weather, and the scientific understanding of a system has to be super accurate. There's no question on that.
Sir, Dil se one question. When did